everybody in YouTube land, it's Arafire back once again with another episode of Look Out and Shout. And today it's a bit of a special one. It's an unboxing video. I haven't done one of these before. Let me show you this obscenely big box. This is it. And that is a dead giveaway. So this isn't exactly a new toy. It's not something that's been freshly released, although I think it has been quite fresh. This is a repaint of an existing mould that came out a little while ago, so there's been a couple of versions already. I think this version came out at the start of this year. Could be wrong with that. The start of this year seems so long ago now. Anyway, yes, of course it is Zeta Toys Bruticus Bruticon, their masterpiece scale combiner. And it is a big, big box. And this is the metallic version. Hello. The metallic painted version, which I really wanted. And yeah, without further ado, let's crack inside and see what's in there. Now the first thing you notice is you get these obscenely large instructions. That is ridiculous. Look at this. Goes on, it's got each individual bot, how they transform and how they get into combine mode. And it doesn't seem too arduous. Nice artwork in there as well. But it's definitely gonna be required, I think. Also what you get is these lovely two polystyrene containers, which obviously house all the bots in. Now, I've taken the bots out because as soon as I tip this up to show you, they just fall out anyway. So what you can see is there's two of these, and if I can actually get it all in the shot without too much glare, there are Bruticus's feet, and these are two alternative heads that you get. And this is where the individual bots live. And there's two of them. I think 3 live in this one, 2 live in the other, plus his gun, plus the guns of the individual bots as well. Very nicely presented and very well packaged, I must say. I can't help but think, where am I going to put this? Okay, let's get some bots out, shall we, and have a little look at what they got to offer. Okay, so first up we have Brawl, and he was the first one I took out of the box, and I felt he was the most attractive looking of them all with the metallic paint. I just really felt the metallic green, sort of camouflagey colour, really caught my eye, really caught the attention. Speaking of eyes, I love the orange eyes, painted eyes, has to be said. Really kind of captures that G1 look, at least from what I can recall, a G1 look. He's really very well done. I really do like how he looks, and articulation can be a bit of a problem, of course, with the shoulders coming into contact with the head. I've attached his gun there as well to give him a bit of a immense firepower action going on. The legs are very noticeable, very fiddly. You can see actually these are rubber tracks, which is good, but we'll cover that more in vehicle mode, I'm sure. The backpack doesn't attach, bit of a shame. The legs, on the other hand, are very noticeable in that they're very clunky, very big. They're obviously housing the bottom half of a tank. You can see the tiger tracks on there, not tiger tracks, but the tank tracks, I should say, on there as well. They are rubber, not metal this time. There is a bit of ankle movement, but really not much to speak of. You do have to kind of get his poses right. But he stands pretty well. The back of his legs I found to be a right nightmare. You can just see there, these back panels are supposed to fold up and then fold in, and these are supposed to peg in, or they fold in when you do a backwards knee movement, which makes a lot of sense, but it is a bit awkward, especially when he comes out of the box. He comes very crumpled up. They all do, really. The back bit doesn't stay on, which is a bit of a shame, just kind of hangs there. So he's obviously got one or two issues. The fingers as well are just open and closed fist, singular movement, no individual fingers, just claw hand, and the gun just slots in there. But overall I am not unhappy with Brawl. And here we have Brawl in his vehicle mode. And I was probably most initially impressed with Brawl out of all of them. I think the vehicle modes on all of these look brilliant, but Brawl in the metallic paint really stood out to me. He really looks like a shining tank, as you kind of imagine, glistening on a battlefield. I think that looks very, very cool. Not going to lie, he wasn't the best to transform. Not for the issues you may have thought. Now, the big glaring obvious point to this is the tyres. And for those of you who know from before, the tyres that came before on the original release were metallic chains, and this gave a lot of people a lot of problems when transforming their Brawl into combined mode or robot mode. They just kept flopping around and falling off and getting in the way, and it was an issue. On this one, much to my surprise, these are rubber, and when you transform him from robot mode, these fold in on themselves, and of course they're rubber, they can take the tolerance, and I think that's a really clever idea. It doesn't give you an awful lot of moving, and I do have to kind of give it some welly to do so, believe it or not. It's not really doing it now. They do move, there's not much to that, but you know, if it's for the sake of a bit more of a helpful transformation and posability in modes, and I'm fine with it. I've also attached his cannon on the top, which, you know, he needs a bit more firepower, doesn't he? But I think it's a very, very nice metallic job there. The turret does move, of course, left and right. It doesn't go up, I don't believe, or if it does, I haven't found out how to do it yet, because I think the protruding cannon stops it from going upwards. So for tank comparisons, the only other tank I already have in the collection is KFC's version of Blitzwing, and it is a much bigger tank, it is a much heavier tank, there's a lot of die cast in that, there's a fair bit of die cast in this as well, but still, you can see how they scale. For in terms of, you know, tank design, Brawl wins that one. He actually looks like a tank, and this is where I think Zeta really do kind of win the battle on this, in that the vehicle modes look like they don't even need to be transformers. That just could be a model tank. You can almost tell quite clearly that this is a stage tank, particularly when you look around the back. Of course, it's about unfair to me to draw comparisons, but mind you, they're both triple changers. That's a fair point. One by design, one by combiner. But still, another tank to draw comparisons with. Still a very cool figure. I do really like it. I think the metallic part to it is exceptional. Just really catches the eye. And next up we have Blastoff. Now, I was very dubious of Blastoff when I took him out of the box. The upper, I will say this, the upper half of the robot mode I think looks great. I actually quite like the head sculpt, which I'll get in and show you here. Even though I felt at first it wasn't very G1 accurate or anything like that. Not that this is necessarily a G1 set, but I felt I hadn't particularly seen this type of head sculpt on Blastoff before. But still, I like it. I love the upper body. I think the detailing here, the purple, the shoulders, I think look very good for this figure. That particular type of metallic silver they use as well looks very, almost Star Warsy Death Star type of colour. It's this kind of darkness grey. I really do like it. And, you know, that's kind of that for the upper bit. I think the obviously noticeable bit is this, the fact that he has, I mean, it's no better from the back, an entire space shuttle really, or at least half of a space shuttle hanging off his legs, and that's pretty much kibble central. Can't really say it's not. The feet, of course, are just, well, they're jets. They're jet engines, really. Were you really expecting anything more? I probably wasn't. That's a bit of a shame. The back as well, being the fact that that's his cockpit in shuttle mode, it is just kind of hanging there. I would have liked that to have come down and to at least formed part of the back. I don't think it goes any lower than that from what I've seen. But overall, better than I thought. I will say though, their arms and the hands do get in the way, in that it doesn't take much at all to knock them out for transformation, because this is where you flip out the nose cone flips out from inside the arm, and you only have to knock something ever so slightly. If I give that a bit of a nudge, this starts to protrude, or it really doesn't take much at all. But overall, better than I thought. Now, I don't have a torch to hand. I wish I did. I have got a light above, but you'll have to take my word for it. There is actually light piping here, and it is a mean shade of purple. I'll have to get a torch and show you somehow, but it does look really, really good. The only thing is, and I found this on a few Transformers, is when they've got a big backpack, you can't get light through it really to see the light piping. So on Brawl, he's got painted eyes. Okay, he's got a big turret behind him anyway, but Blastoff has light piping, so you can get the light through and get a great looking purple vision, but you'll never get the light through because of the backpack. Bit of a shame. Same as Brawl really. Gun in there and it just slots in. Just individual open and close hands, but they do like to flop out of their position a bit. So yeah, Kibble central, but again for the upper body, a very nice rendition. All transformed is Blastoff in his shuttle mode, and he is a very impressive looking shuttle. I can't believe the size of it, to be honest. Not that a robot was a small robot, but how it just pads out to this thick fuselage. It's a very impressive design. Got a lot of weight to it. Comes out really, really well. Of course, there is a bit of tabbing issue. I don't think I've done this particular tabbing piece right, and these two top panels do also want to come off. But that can happen with Transformers, tabbing into modes such as these. What really put me off about the first run of the Zeta Toys figures, the Masterpiece figures that they did, is that I felt that with the kind of matte colour that they came out with, that particularly Blastoff ended up looking like a piece of poo in this mode. He was just kind of matte and brown, and it was a bit... Yes, well, anyway, this is obviously being the metallic set, has completely cured that. It's got a real nice sheen to it. I'll never understand why a shuttle is brown, though. I don't understand why they felt the need to make him brown, but I've never seen a brown shuttle, but then again, I don't think I've seen any shuttle, not in the flesh anyway. So for accessories, he comes with two rather metallic-y painted cannons, which can be, of course, used in robot mode, but really their design can be to go on to the side here in vehicle mode. Now they can plug in, but these gaps here, don't know if I can actually get... They can plug in, but these gaps are very tight, and they're not very deep as well, but that might give you some idea as to what to expect. If I bring in my little stand for him to sit on, get in some sort of focus from you can't really see them, they're at the back, and then they plug in there. You can also plug them in a bit more effectively on the underside of the wings. You can also plug them in a bit more effectively in these tabs on the underside of each wing. That goes in much easier. And then definitely if I bring this back in, you'll see how that looks. You can plug in his normal gun as well, but it's in the same bits as before, the same pegs as before, so that's probably the better way to do it if you so wish to choose. So for comparison with other shuttles, because yes, I do have other shuttles, here is Fancy Cell's Transportation Captain, which is a barely a Masterpiece scale Astro Train. And I still really like that figure, but you can just see the immense size difference of it is quite substantial. You can barely get two shuttles in the same frame. It's it just shows you how much presence the Zeta Toys brings to the party. I love these curvatures on the engines. They look really good. Yeah. And for a bit more of a modern, up-to-date take, here is Earthrise Commander Class Skylink's Magnificence himself. And I feel that looks really good together. It makes me appreciate Skylinks as much as I appreciate Blastoff. And that really is a great comparison of the two, sort of a yin and yang thing going on. I think that's quite cool. And if I can get them going in their launch positions, because they should just about stand. Move the camera back. There you go. Very impressive and imposing figures. And from one kibble to another, here is Vortex. Now, those of you who know, the original release of this set came with Vortex in his purple and teal green colour, and I really wasn't a fan of that. I think this is so much better in this hump of metallic grey, and I just think that looks so good. I love the eyes, the blood red eyes. Again, these are painted, but that facial expression, that just hint of misted blue or metallic blue, breaks up the silver very nicely, and I just think that looks really good. And of course you can actually see with the light I've got above, it really does catch the light, it really reflects well. I actually think this looks like quite a good mode. There is no question he is, you know, going hiking with this backpack of obscenity to him, and it's no better on his legs either. He is, of course, a helicopter, a big helicopter at that, with stuff hanging over and hanging off, and it is what it is, because I do think if you're going to make them on this scale, transforming into big alt modes, there's going to be a compromise. Stuff just doesn't fall away. I mean, he has 6 top rotor blades. How do you hide 6 rotor blades into body compartments short of taking them off? You can't really. He is, again, limited for articulation. There's his gun attached, same as the other two, claw hands. So the gun slots in as well. I actually really like the figure for how it looks. It's got very poor manoeuvrability. His feet are, of course, the cockpit of the helicopter just kind of stood down, so they're sort of ovals, really, and they don't look the nicest, I'll be honest. And the rear rotor blade, you can see here, that really does stick out. I'm not actually certain I've got that put in correctly, if I'm honest, but there's such a mess back there. There's not many places for things to go, but I really do love just how that looks. I think it's the fact it is just mostly grey, mostly silver, hint of blue, and a piercing dark red eye just staring at you like he's out for blood. And here is Vortex in his vehicle mode, and that is a lovely, lovely looking military helicopter. Now, I've noticed this has become a theme with all of this in the Zeta set, is that there is some tabbing in issues, and this really applies here. Plus, this was probably the most difficult and painful to transform. I spent ages doing it. I'm not going to say that it was all the fault of Zeta Toys, because I could have easily just been tabbing stuff in wrong myself. You can see at the front there, I haven't exactly done that right. But there's this side panel that connects in, and I just couldn't for the life of me get that done, which is a real shame, really. But that's the only big gripe. The rest is quite minimal. But there are tabbing issues seemingly on all of the bots, getting them into vehicle mode. But I love how this looks. I love how everything spins as you'd expect. What I will say is, when it came out of the box, as I got the combined box, the group box with all of them in it, is that the blades and the rotor blades all came detached, and I had to fit them myself. So with that, you had to put in, if if you can see here, there's these tiny pins just at the top of my nail there, and you had to line up the blades to the pegs and then put the pins through, which in the end I had to get in because they were so small. I had to get in with pliers just to pinch them down, and this one at the back I had to put in with a screwdriver. So quite a lot of constructive work. But yeah, the tabbing issues on this one are quite apparent. I can't get this bit at the top. These two pieces peg into each other, or they peg into the cockpit itself. I can't seem to get both of them together, no matter how hard I try. He's got some nice little weapons on the side that if I press a button, this part of the rocket comes out and fires. It's spring-loaded, so that's a nice thing to lose down the back of the sofa. I absolutely love how it looks. I think, again, the metallic paint job in this mode, this was probably the vehicle that really got my attention for it. This looks like a proper helicopter, and I say this about all the vehicles. They don't look like Transformers. They look like vehicles. This just looks like a helicopter to me. You wouldn't believe it turns into a robot. There are quite a few tabbing issues on it, but and it wasn't fun to transform, not particularly. But I do like how it looks, even with its flaws. Now, I don't really have another helicopter to do a comparison against Vortex here. I do have a blackout coming on the way, an oversized blackout, which I'd love to see how they look against one another. But the closest I can do for a helicopter comparison is that. Combiner Wars Alpha Bravo. It's literally the only other helicopter that I've got. So, there you go. And next we have the cheeky chappy himself. And before we go any further, just look at that face. Look at that face sculpt. Isn't he just having the best time? He just looks great. He's so happy, so pleased with life. He's probably just cut a deal somewhere. This is probably the most fun of all the figures to mess around with. His arms are very square, bit clunky, and can get in the way, of course. Similar to Brawl. The backpack, again, similar to the other figures, it does get in the way a little bit, particularly with the rear of the shoulders, so it can make posing the arms a bit difficult. But it is really fun to play with. He has actually got the best ankle tiltage by some distance. I mean, look at that. You can get some insane poses out of this because of how much it folds down for the transformation. And not only that, if I can hold this right, he's even got some sort of tiltage. So there he's kind of rocking the hip. I'm sure that's more for manoeuvrability of combined mode for Bruticus, but he's sitting there giving it all sass. I think he said if I can put a hand on his hip, he would just be in Sass City right now. I really like how he looks. He's not too bad for kibble off the back compared to some of his other teammates. Can't find a good place to put the gun in though. I think I might have to play around with that. Same as before, it's just... Actually, I don't think it is. I think... Yes, I thought this was. For some reason, he has individual moving fingers. Now, I think if I'm right, he's the only one who does. Everyone else has the standard claw-like open-close hand, and he has the articulated fingers. Why swindle? Of all of them, did he swindle a deal? Who knows? But still, very much like him. Again, light piping behind the eyes. I wish I could show you, but trust me, it's there. And it lights up really well. Just, again, goes with that facial expression. He is such a cheeky chappy. And here we have Swindle in his Jeep mode. And again, I just love how this looks. It just looks like an actual Jeep. It doesn't particularly look like a Transformer. I will say, when you saw the Brawl review... Try again. You saw the Brawl review earlier. I actually had this cannon on Brawl's back, where I actually had the wrong gun pegged in. So apologies for that. This is Swindle's one, of course, that would fit on his arm otherwise. So I've seen that error now and corrected it. What I love about this is, as I like about most of them, the wheels are rubber, which I've said before is quite a rarity, very welcome. Now, a lot of you will know this, of course, from the original release of this combiner set. It's actually got a front wheel axle, so both wheels turn at the same time, which they did not have to do, but it's a great thing nonetheless to just get that degree of turn. Don't have to, but it's a nice thing to do. And I just really love it. I think that's such a nice idea. But the thing that I found out, which again must be on the original version, I thought was so good, it's actually got suspension. Not so much at the back, but definitely at the front. And if you look underneath on the axles, there's springs there. And there is a form of suspension at the back as well. So not only do we have rubber tyres, not only do we have a front axle, we actually have suspension on a model vehicle. That's really good. That's really great design. Again, seems to be tabbing issues. I don't think I can be blamed too much on this one. I can't get the two to just line up at the front. The windows are a little fiddly. But I've got to say, as transformation goes, this was the most straightforward of it all. He is quite clunky in robot mode. He is arms and legs, so naturally it folds into a square quite easily. But, you know, I really like him for what he is. The metallic paint doesn't show as much in this one, probably for the type of mustard colour that he is. But, again, very happy with how he comes out. The only comparison I can really do in Jeep mode anyway is a recent pickup, which I think you all got as well. It was Masterpiece Ironhide, and that's about as much of a Jeep comparison as I can do. Not too dissimilar for Masterpiece scale. Quite a nice size, all things considered. Completely different aesthetics, completely different looks, but still something to take into account. And here finally is the big boy himself, Onslaught. And he is a big boy. I've got him as far back on the table as I could go just to try and get the majority of him in a shot. He looks incredible. He's so big. So if I bring him in, you'll see just how big he is. That's about as much as I can get keeping his face in the frame. He is a very heavy, very square figure. But I absolutely love how he looks. Now if I tilt him down a bit, you can actually see the cannons on the back that will form Bruticus' cannons as well. There's a lot about this I like. There is kibble, I guess, on the arms, because he does fall out into his tank mode. That doesn't want to stay in for some reason. That wants to pop out. But by and large, the kibble is actually quite minimal. A lot of stuff folds up internally. Even the stuff at the back isn't too bad. That's fairly tidy. Sort of Ultra Magnus territory. The only thing that there's two things I'll say about it. And I don't know if you'll see up there, the eyes are painted. They're orange painted, and I think that catches the Generation 1 cartoon look really well. But, and I think this was an issue first time round as well, that wobbles far too much. You can get him into poses, but one knock and it goes. And I think they are all a bit like that in their way. So maybe, I don't know, I think there's a furniture polish trick that solves that. You can, of course, flop out the chest and get it to fall around to a sort of a cleaner finish. And would you believe I can't get it open now? There you go. And then that rotates. And you get a clearer finish. I prefer how the original looks, if I'm honest. Now, I do think he is struggling to stand up. Now, you can't see unless I tilt the camera down, actually you might. The feet are fairly touching the floor, but if I turn those ankles inwards to get a flat look on the ankles, rock them inwards, he does have a tendency to lean back because there's a lot of back weight. So you may have to do just sort of stand at attention, which doesn't look particularly good, but he is very heavy. He is a beefy boy, so he has naturally a lot of weight to support. I really do like how he looks, though. I think he looks as I'd expect Onslaught to look. Onslaught was always one of the bigger ones in the cartoon, so there's no reason why the figure of him shouldn't look just as impressive. I'll just say very quickly as well, here is his gun that it comes with, and I can't for the life of me get it in. It's a claw hand open, and there's actually a groove in there, if you can see it. And this seems to be a theme across all of the Zeta bots. They're so tight to get stuff in. I mean, that's not in, that's just snugly sitting on the top. I mean, it's there, but it's... you can see there, he's not exactly holding it. He just seems to have the tightest handhold joints to put them in. It's yeah, it's a bit of a shame that he's the only one who does suffer from that, I've noticed. And here is Onslaught in his vehicle mode, and what a whopper. This guy is insanely huge. I don't think I can get that in one frame, if I'm honest. There, that is the width of my camera frame at that distance. That's pretty mad, pretty impressive. The transformation wasn't too difficult, I've got to say. I'm pleased with that. I think that once you get the arms folded up, there is a bit of leg tabbing and flapping panels towards the end, which can be a little fiddly, but by and large it's quite straightforward. He is essentially all put into a line and laying down. So again, really like it. Rubber tyres on this as well, which is very nice to see. The majority of them roll, depending how your ground clearance works. Nothing's dragging, but with these things they're seldom completely flat, so not every wheel is rolling. The underside is nice and clear. The cannon, of course, on the top takes quite a lot of attention, quite a lot of precedence. I put these rockets in. I think they're supposed to go in there. I don't know if and how you can fire them, and honestly, I don't really want to know. I like my eyes intact. Nice little addition of the wing mirrors as well. I just think it looks really menacing from the front in the truck mode. It looks just as you'd expect him to look, although I'm not entirely sure what this vehicle is ever supposed to be. He's a truck and a trailer, a carrier. I'm not really sure what it is, but whatever it is, it looks very heavy duty, very, very impressive. Again, have got tabbing issues at the front. Again, this one could be me. I can't seem to get that join completely in. That's a bit of a shame. There is a bit of tabbing issues on him. You have to kind of go back and re-tab and tab again, tab again. This bit at the front, just under the cockpit, keeps wanting to come up. Minor things here and there, but again, this seems to be a theme with all of the Zeta combiners, sadly. Zeta figures, I should say. So, for any kind of a comparison that I can do, would you believe I don't have many other things like this, because I don't even know what it is. But the best comparison I can do is his Generation 1 counterpart. And that's what 35 years looks like, folks. That is quite a change. And obviously a lot of money spent between now and then. So, there you go, for any kind of comparison. Now, the other thing that you can do is using his shield or ramp, whatever you want to call it, is kind of go into his trailer mode, which really comes across from the Generation 1 figure. Now, I'm not certain I've done that right, if I'm honest, but everything tabs up, believe it or not. It all goes into fitted pegs and holes, but then it doesn't exactly look like a ramp. It's just kind of a straight platform. I'm not certain I've done it right, so if someone knows in the comments, please let me know of where and how I'm going to do it. I have looked for a couple of other videos and it's been a bit inconclusive. However, when the legs are extended, it does fit vehicles on there quite nicely. So I guess that's the thing you can do, but I'm not so sure that's been done correctly, unless that is just there to support it. I think I prefer it closed together, if I'm honest, giving Onslaught his traditional Generation 1 look. I do think it's a shame that they don't particularly bend. I mean, you could move the legs, I suppose, but it's not as free-moving as, say, the Generation 1 toy was. But that would be my only criticism on a mode, and an addition to a mode that you probably won't use all that much. And here you have all of the Combaticons together in their vehicle modes. And it's just really, really impressive. I would honestly be happy just to keep them in these modes. I'll say it again, they might as well just be models of these modes. They don't have to be Transformers. They look incredible. The big theme across them all is that there is tabbing issues on every one of the figures in one point or another. I think maybe Brawl is the best one for that. He seems to have the least tapping issues. Swindle wasn't that bad. The worst one to transform by a mile was Vortex. The easiest one was Swindle. The one I was most surprised with was Blastoff. I think he looked really good. I think they all look good. The metallic paint job really is what's drawn me to the set, and I'm not disappointed. They look incredible. I'm very, very tempted to keep them in this mode because they do look like war machines as they are. I can't zoom in anymore. They're just so big. The size really doesn't do them any kind of justice on camera, but they are very, very imposing. And of course you can do a bit of stacking around, and I think, to be honest, for displaying purposes I'm probably going to have to do this because the wingspan of blast off is pretty pretty intense, but I don't think I'm going to get them all together any other way. They do just look really, really something. Very happy with them. And finally, here's a group shot of all of them together, and that for me is where this set really just completes it. With all of them stood side by side, they're all big guys. Yes, they all have kibble, but together they look like the complete team. I'm so impressed with how they look. They look how I'd expect the Combaticons to look. I think it is all down to that paint. That metallic paint has wowed me completely. I think they just look so good. Yes, they do have issues. There's a lot of back kibble for the vehicle modes on pretty much all of them. Swindle probably has the least of it all. Brawl's not too bad, but his legs are definitely the worst. Legs are definitely worse on Brawl for just being. Leg kibble, blast off wins that one. The cleanest of them all has to be Onslaught. He does tidy up really well, but I can't seem to get the gun in him. The hand holes on all of them are tight. Also, the squeaky hinges, I should say, on the arm rotation, they're on all of them. They're very squeaky, and Brawl's was super tight. So when I was getting him into position, it squeaked and it fought and friction so much. I thought, am I even doing this right? But still, they just look amazing all lined up. And this is just to give you an idea of how they scale with other Masterpiece figures. And here is Onslaught and Swindle scaling alongside Megatron. And I'm not saying they're supposed to look like the Rat Pack, but here we are. And he is their creator after all. Right, let's get them transformed. Now I'll probably have to go a bit freehand with the camera now, just to give you an indication of what he is like. And that is just like nothing I have ever seen for a Transformer. Getting him into a pose is difficult. You'll see I've got him resting against the wall. He's a very, very heavy boy. Fiddly in parts, but a very impressive finish. And I love that head design. I think that looks so cool. He actually comes with two heads, which I'll show you both in a minute. You may have noticed from throughout the figure, there is a couple of tabbing issues. I struggled getting Onslaught to sit into the back and then get the fake chest piece, if you like, if you're familiar with it. That is a separate torso element that clips over, and the headpiece flips over as well. And it's actually come undone, so it's all the shape around. I cannot get those little pegs tagged in. Even his arm socket here, that Vortex is plugged into, doesn't want to sit down properly, so I'm going to have to do a bit of adjusting to that. But this is, of course, just a out-of-the-box feel. If I move the camera back a bit, that might give you something to look at. Okay, so that gives you something to look at, and it is a very, very good-looking piece. It is just really, really impressive. Again, I love how the metallic paint works. Now, I want to talk about that chest piece. I have certain concerns or issues about parts forming with combiners, but I completely agree with why it's here in this set. I think Bobby Skullface said it on one of his reviews of this figure, of one of the earlier figures releases, is that Onslaught makes the body, the torso of the combiner, and Onslaught is blue. Bruticus is grey. Now we have grey, with a big piece of a chest and thighs and waist. It is a huge piece that will just otherwise lie around, but to complete the image, totally worth it. Now, it does come with some input voice and lights inside the head. Now I have put in some batteries. Do check which batteries you need. They're not the normal LR44s. They're something else. They're LR290, I think, or 270. Never heard of them before. But they do come with some good features, so I'll just get up and press it. So all the normal stuff that you'd expect to hear Bruticus say, all taken from the Generation 1 cartoon, all sounding very angry and stupid. Now he does come with another head, which is a bit more cartoon accurate, and it's a bit soft around the edges. This was one I had on at first, but I preferred the other one. But this one has its own built-in sound clips as well, if you want them. So, you know, something else to put on if you so choose. Personally, I'm happy with what's on there at the moment. And whilst scale will always be debated, here he is with Eartherized Starscream, and actually I think that scales quite well if you think of the Generation 1 cartoon and how Starscream would sit on Bruticus's shoulder. And here he is holding his gun that he comes with. It tabs in really well. It is a bit droopy when the arms go forward, and he has a gun to hold on to as well, but the ratchets and the joints are so tight you don't feel like anything's going to fall out. Just balancing in general is a bit of an issue with him, but again, he just looks so menacing. He is such a brute, such a gladiator. Okay, so my final verdict on this is that whilst this is a very quick impressions out of the box, and I probably haven't done everything right, I probably haven't tabbed everything in correctly, this is just me feeling around with Bruticus. First impressions is incredible. I think this is the first masterpiece combiner I've had in my collection, and I absolutely adore it. I can see why so many people are buying in to the masterpiece combiner market, because this is the results that you get. I think the individual bots are very good in their own right. I think that the robot modes are probably the weakest of all of modes. I think the vehicle modes stand out on their own. I think the vehicles are very good, and I do want to kind of keep them in the vehicle modes. The transformation from robot to vehicle mode and then to combined mode can be a bit of a pain. Some of the tabbing is an issue. Some of that's my fault, some of that's the fault of the toys. They're so clunky, there's so much to them, such engineering involved, that you end up with really sore fingers at the end of it. It's quite a workout. I've got to say, combining him into this mode was a bit difficult. Getting Onslaught to fold up into essentially a sound wave like box and to tuck into the back was probably the hardest part of all of it. Fitting the legs wasn't too bad, and the fitting the feet was actually quite easy. But I've obviously waited a bit, and this has come out with the upgrade kits because I think they re-released with the same colour feet as well that weren't there before for the combined mode. So it blends into Swindle and it blends into Brawl. There's so much about this set I like. I mean, maybe I'd like his rear guns, his rear cannons on his back to be a little taller. Maybe. I don't think I can extend them, but again, I'll have to have a little look at that in my own time. I think this really a really solid effort. I mean, this is a lot of engineering. Now, it's not cheap. It's not the cheapest set. I bought it in one, so they're never going to be that cheap. But for what you're getting, the engineering, the heft and the scale involved, and again, I just love that metallic paint. It's got to be worth it. I mean, this is going to be a little bit centerpiece now of my collection. I've just got to work out where to put it. But overall, I absolutely love this figure. Don't regret it whatsoever. And I'm interested to see what other masterpiece combiners we can get. Hopefully, Fans Toys will finish their Superion, and I can get the last two jets for that, and I think that would look really good alongside that. Failing that, I will just pick up Zeta Toys Kronos, their Superion, and have them alongside Bruticus. So there you have it. That is a unboxing and a first impressions of Zeta Toys Bruticon, or Bruticus. thanks for watching. Bit of a long one. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.